Good afternoon and welcome to CEC Gurukul lecture. In the series on economic sociology, in today's lecture, we're going to discuss on an important aspect of economy, that is reciprocity and gift. These are forms of exchange which initially sociologists and anthropologists thought to be informal, to be part of non-market society. And therefore, we're going to refer to Marcel Mauss's work, The Gift, to understand the relevance of the form of exchange in so-called archaic or primitive society. But before we try to understand forms of exchange, especially reciprocity and gift, let us try to understand that as anthropology and sociology as disciplines were emerging, a large amount of literature were trying to do a comparison between the Western society and the non-Western society. And an evolutionary theory was applied to understand transformation of so-called simple, primitive, archaic, these are all synonymous terms, to understand the difference between the so-called Western society, which were considered to be market-based and therefore considered to be more progressive or developed. Now, when anthropologists from the Western society started studying the simple society, to them the economy, the forms of exchange of these simple society appeared to be kind of informal, something which was only to do for sake of social relations. It was very late that anthropologists started kind of bringing out the economic relevance of these forms of exchange. So, with this understanding, we are going to look at or refer to one of the classical texts in anthropology to understand forms of exchange, that is Marcel Mauss. The book is The Gift. So, we will go back to the early 20th century. Sociologists and anthropologists sought both to document the features of non-Western societies and to classify and make sense of the information in terms of social evolutionary stages, and the primitive was considered as a stage which was less developed compared to the Western market capitalist forms of society. A number of scholars towards the end of 20th century started critiquing the evolutionary theories, highlighting the difference between Western and non-Western society were kind of only from a perspective of anthropologists, and there was a certain kind of bias, a Western bias in understanding the simple society. Forms of exchange was one criteria used to differentiate different types of society, and most of the existing literature was suggesting that the so-called simple society lacked any formal institutions of market. The overarching question that sociologists sought to address at the time of Marcel Mauss' analysis was how society was organized and how the structure was related to way they function. Now, this takes us back to Malinowski's work when he was studying the Trobriand Islanders. There too, he began with the question of whether the simple society had any kind of rationality, whether they had any kind of scientific understanding of their economic life. And through the analysis of Kula, Malinowski was also arguing that Kula exchange or the barter exchange was structuring social relations. A number of scholars assumed that social forms were determined by material, technological or biological factors, and that is where the significance was given to the emergence of market, where material transactions were taking place. On the other side, there were scholars who were documenting language, customs and the ways of life in all the historical and local particularity. So, in anthropology, we had this debate between the universal versus the specific. So, could there be a kind of universal understanding of different forms of exchange, or there was kind of cultural specificity to them? Marcel Mauss focused on the exchange of property, person and services in societies believed to occupy the same social evolutionary level. Now, why do we need to study exchange? Because we need to living in a time where we have a material dimension ruling our social life. So, the market has started dominating, and therefore, the emergent question is why study gift exchange? So, we kind of look into how the study of gift exchange not only questions the dichotomy that had been used for studying different types of society, and also the biasness in the anthropologist who was going to the simple society and studying their way of life. So, unlike traditional theory, reciprocity and gift in primitive societies are not spontaneous, voluntary, and disinterested. So, there was a literature which came up suggesting, and much of this literature was coming in from the Western anthropologists, that primitive people were gift exchanging spontaneously. There was no organized forms of exchange. The people were just doing it without any kind of interest, and it was voluntary. Now that specifically with the coming of Marcel Mauss, the theories were negated, and the idea that has been put across is that gifts are part of formal, rational, and economic interested transaction. And that is why the studying of gifts becomes an important area within economic sociology. According to Mauss, sociologists have challenged the view of economists that gift exchange is solely an economic activity. Now, the economist was trying to understand rationality, the utilitarian perspective, and when they looked into gift, for them it's kind of lacked any utilitarian value, or there were kind of no rationality behind it, and therefore it was outside their purview. Sociologists, especially those who were looking at the interrelation between economics and sociology, were trying to focus on gift exchange as being at an intersection of both economy and social life. Marcel Mauss, along with many others, had noted that in societies without monetary exchange or legal structure, gift giving and receiving was carried out according to strict customs and unwritten laws. So, when we discuss this theory and read more about it, we kind of understand that gift exchange is not a part of informal structure. It was regulating economy, it was regulating the social relationship among the member, and at the same time it was also kind of responsible for the political relations in society. So, most of the time we understand gift as a social force, as something kind of maintaining solidarity. But within that understanding will emerge how it is also negotiating relations of power, hierarchy, and inequality. So, gift practices shape social obligations, reciprocity, and solidarity among individuals and communities. What Morse was trying to do when he was writing this book, The Gift, was to analyze the structures that governed how and when gifts were given, received, and reciprocated. So, basically, he was trying to say that gift was not only kind of one stage where you give someone. He says there are three interrelated dimensions, which is that you gift, you will receive in return, and those who are receiving will reciprocate, will give back the so, this giving, receiving, and reciprocating or giving back would kind of structure the relationship among the members of the society. In many cultures, gift giving is a crucial structural force binding people together in a web of reciprocal commitment, and thus gift can be seen as glue of society. So, the whole idea that you are going to be connected into a network of relations, so it's just not giving and it gets over. So, you will only kind of enter into this circle of giving, receiving, and giving back with people whom you have a certain kind of relationship, and therefore it kind of keeps the society together. There are two aims for studying the forms of exchange, reciprocity and exchange, and here the specific reference to the archaic society or simple society. The first objective is to enable the scholar or person who's studying to compare two societies in different period, that is the past and the present, simple versus the advanced industrial society. And at one point it was kind of seen that they are completely different, and we have, as students of sociology, studied the difference, that the simple society are more collective society, western are moving towards individuality, or the simple society, the consumption is for their own need, whereas in modern advanced society the consumption is regulated through the market. So a number of differences were there, and when we look into this act of giving and receiving gift, we realize that there is a lot of similarity between what was happening in the so-called simple society and how we kind of structures our relations to gifts in modern industrial society. The second aim of studying reciprocity and gift is that it negates the assumption that primitive societies lack economic market. And this is not true for market. According to Marcel Mauss, is a human phenomena which has been present in all known societies, but the form in which it was present was different. So the present modern Western society, the market is there, and what happens in the market? There is a transaction of only material goods through capital, through the sale and purchase of capital, whereas in the past the market was there where what could be kind of termed as a barter system or exchange of services or exchange of non-material goods and services. So when we look into the whole idea that there is a dichotomy between the economic system of the past, so which has been labeled as simple archaic society, and the present, which is labeled as modern industrial capitalist society. However, when we do a comparison, we see this number of differences which has been questioned or which has been critiqued. The number one is, and this is according to Marcel Mauss, that there has never been something what is called as a natural economy. Now, if you kind of think of what is a natural economy, the reference would go back to primitive society, hunting, gathering, the relationship with nature, with the rivers and the natural phenomena. But that is kind of only an assumption. According to Marcel Mauss, among the Polynesian society, they are kind of far removed from the nature. It's not everything regulated through nature. Number two is that in the past there was no exchange of goods and wealth and produce through market established among individuals. Rather, it was groups that carried out exchange, made contracts and were bound by obligations. So this is kind of understanding of why the exchange was taking place at a collective level versus the exchange taking place at individual level. The third, exchange was not exclusively economic value. So what do we do in the market today? We will sell and purchase land, property, product, which all have a materialistic value. Whereas in the past, exchange was taking place of non-material things. It could be exchange of culture, it could be of social values. So a lot of kind of understanding was there. Things were there, but in different form. Gift giving, specifically referring to Marcel Mauss' work, is symbolic. Mauss' works provides insight into the cultural foundation of exchange system and the underlying principle that govern social interaction in archaic society. According to Mauss, gift exchange is not just an economic transaction but a symbolic act that carries social and moral significance. So there is a lot of morality in terms of returning back, and there is a lot of consequences if in case the gift is not returned back. Gifts are not only objects but also embody the social relationship and values of the giver and receiver. They can express gratitude, establish alliances, and create obligations for the entire community. So, we are here therefore referring to this classical text written by Marcel Mauss, The Gift. It was a comparative study of the institution of the gift in different primitive and archaic society. He studies a number of society, the Polynesian, the Malaysian society, the Trobriand, the Samao, and his kind of comparing the idea behind these exchange, the way it has been exchanged and how it is kind of structuring social relationship. The book attempts to distinguish between commerce as it understood in Western countries from the act of gift giving, which acts as a catalyst for enhancing solidarity and obligation between the gift giver and the gift receiver. The gift exchange involves ulterior motives and is complicated and intricate process that requires a priori knowledge of the person or the groups who partakes in this ritual. So, it is a part of everyday life. It is not taking place with unknown or strangers. So, this in itself is kind of also enabling people to recognize who are the insiders and who are the members of the society versus those who are outside it. So, the performance of ritual for the gift giving in itself strengthens kinship ties and at the community level. The book has become a classical text in anthropology for two reasons. Number one, Marcel Mauss notes the existence of a logically structured communication system, and at the same time he enters the concept of the total social phenomena in anthropological theory. He regarded gift as a total social phenomena. The concept of a multidimensional phenomena which is at the same time economical, juridical, moral, religious, mythological and aesthetical. So, when we were earlier referring to the gift and we were kind of considering it as an informal act, we were only looking at one dimension. When we look into it from say a total social phenomena, it becomes a part of the economic system, a part of the political system, the religious, and a lot of reference to morality and mythology. Before this book was published, we did not suspect the economical importance of the gift and its role in Asian society. The work highlights the difference between one-off and ongoing exchanges between people and offers a consideration of relationship between economic activity, social behavior, belief system and the notions of morality. We will be discussing how the gift exchange is not only taking place among individual with men, but it is also with reference to God, with spiritual sense, and therefore the element of morality is very strong in the understanding of the forms of reciprocity and gift exchange. Why is Marcel Mauss referring to these societies as archaic is to designate indigenous and Asian societies that operate without money but not without trade and bartering. So, the whole idea was to differentiate between the earlier societies from the present society, and economy was one main institution on the basis of which the difference was done, and assumption was that the earlier societies did not have the concept of money, they did not trade and they did not have any kind of bartering system. This understanding or this assumption is being critiqued by Marcel Mauss' book. People do not give things without expecting something back in return. So, what is barter? If you give something, you will get back something. So, when you are doing a gift exchange, the expectation to get back return is kind of very high, and we will see that if we don't return back, there is a kind of a moral obligations to do it, and not doing it, there are certain kind of social restrictions that one has to face. The analysis looks at giving and receiving of objects, people, intangible goods in archaic society. So, when we read the text, the gift, we can kind of learn three important aspects of forms of exchange, specifically reciprocity and gift. The first is that gift giving is not simple an act of generosity. We are not doing it spontaneously out of charity, but a complex social practice that creates and maintains social relationship and obligations. So there is a motive behind it. It is kind of not always voluntary, it is much planned and it is kind of organized. Number two, gifts are not given freely, but a part of reciprocal exchange that creates a cycle of obligations and counter obligations. To exchange of gift is not limited to material objects, but can also include intangible gifts such as knowledge, skills, and information. In the earlier non-Western legal and economical system, the exchange of good took place between collectivities and not individuals. So these are some of the important dimension to understand, and here when we look into the whole idea of reciprocity, it is directly linked to the idea of gifts. It is rather a central principle that governs gift exchange. Reciprocity is kind of reciprocal relationship. So it is also emphasizing on the egalitarian relationship. The moment the gift exchange is taking place, it is kind of questions a hierarchical relation and it establishes an egalitarian relationship. When we look into the central principle of gift system, there are three central principles. Number one, the obligation to give. If you are a member of a society, you are obliged or you are kind of considered as mandatory to be a part of the gift exchange. Marcel Mauss argues that in simple societies, refusing to give, failing to invite or rejecting gift is tantamount to declaring war and severing the bond of alliance and commonality. So we see that an act of gift will also help us to understand why there is a violent relationship between two community or why there is a kind of enmity between the two. So if there is violence or enmity, the exchange of gift would be absent. Such society view object as belonging to the collective rather than individual. Thus, everyone possesses certain rights over the object. So, there is a question of morality. You are part of the system and therefore, you are morally obliged to be a part of the exchange. As such, the receiver of the gift has the same rights over the object as the donor. The second principle of gift exchange is the obligation to receive. You are not only obliged to give, you are also under obligation to receive gift. So, declining a gift or refusing to attend a potlatch in primitive society is an act of weakness and submission, as it suggests one is fearful of returning the gesture or losing their name and social status. So, there is a lot of connotation of why an individual will not return back the gift that he has received. In the Kawakut tribe, however, refusal can be bold assertion of victory. So, political dimension comes in. If you refusing it, it's an indication of being more powerful than those who are giving you gift, and therefore you are in a position to refuse. However, by and large, the obligation to receive gift is kind of very strong. As a result, every gift must be accepted and lauded, and failing give or receive is akin to loss of dignity and honor. The third central principle of gift exchange is the obligation to reciprocate. According to Marcel Mauss, the essence of gift exchange is the obligation to reciprocate, which combines both the obligations to give and receive. So, first principle is that you have to give gift. The second is that you have to receive the gift. Now, after receiving, you have to strengthen the relationship, and therefore, the third principle states that once you have received gift, you have to reciprocate. That is, you have to return the gift back to from where you have received. Now, this dimension of reciprocity contains an element of sacrificial destruction, which is evident in all forms of Northwest American and Northeast Asian potlatch among the American Indian, as involves the show of power, wealth and unselfishness through the destruction of object. Marcel Mauss discusses two examples of exchange in archaic societies, the kula, which was initially studied by Malinowski in the Trobriand island, and the second ritual is the potlatch, and the potlatch is a system aspect of subordinate rationality. Now, when we are talking about gift exchange, another concept which is also synonymous in anthropology is prestation. Prestation is kind of also meaning gift giving. So, the system of contractual gift takes place at the time of marriage, childbirth, circumcision, sickness, puberty, funerals and trade. Such contractual gift have two elements, the honor, prestige or mana. The mana is the invisible force which wealth confers, and secondly, absolute obligation to make return gift under the penalty of losing the mana, authority and wealth. The obligation attached to gift itself is not inert. Even when abandoned by the receiver, it still forms a part of it. It has a hold over the receiver, the owner and everyone who stole it. So, when we kind of look into Marcel Mauss' work, we see that his work is also in kind with other kinds of work, which is the economy of prestige by James Scott, the study of social life by Arjun Appadurai, and other by Jonathan Parrott and Mollis Block. There are a lot of studies which are looking into the non-economic dimension of the forms of exchange in primitive society. With this, I come to an end of today's lecture. Thank you.